Occupancy detection, policy-driven technology to responsibly reopen the economy or reopen your facilities, or thinking about ways to have a policy-driven approach to opening your facilities so that you can still maintain social distancing guidelines, but also have people come into your business. There's been a lot of information, let's say, out there in the general public. Well, maybe we'll use thermal imaging cameras to detect people if they have fevers. And I think we've done a pretty good job of an industry in sort of disputing the efficacy of doing something like that. You know, there's this thing called Advil that if you take it, you don't have a fever anymore, or reduces your feverality, as it were. So, you know, if I pop a couple of Advil and walk by your fever screening thermal imaging camera, I've defeated your entire system. Whereas the federal government and state governments are coming out with guidelines stating, you know, if you have X amount of people in a space, we'll allow your business to reopen. So whether that number is 10 or 50 or 100, how do you know how many people are actually in that space? And more than that, what are you going to do with that information once you have it?
Is now exiting.
You can see we've got a lot of people on this call today. My name is Phil Coppola. I'm the regional sales manager for Genetec in the great state of New Jersey, as well as all of these other folks on the list. So pretty much the entire Northeast sales team and sales engineering team is on this call, as well as our regional director, Chris Ritter, and Jared Fullerton, who is the business development manager for Signature Brands. So a lot of hot air in the room, as it were. For those of you familiar with Genetec, this slide should look generally familiar. So Security Center is our core product. It's the core piece of the platform. Those three segments at the top, Synergist for access control, Omnicast for video management, and AutoView for license plate recognition, are our three main components that make up Security Center. So for those of you not familiar with Security Center, think of Security Center like you would think of Microsoft Office. There is no Microsoft Office. There's Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. With us, Security Center is made up of Synergist, Omnicast, and AutoView. Access control, license plate recognition, video management. Now, for those of you that are familiar with this slide, you'll see that I've changed a few of the optional modules here. So typically, this is driven to more of a wide-ranging group of applications, because we could show this to somebody that's in a retail environment or somebody that's in a corporate environment, and it would all make sense. What I've done here is change the optional modules to talk more about COVID-specific response. So within Security Center, we can do things like dynamic graphical maps, which we're going to show you today as part of this overall solution. So I want to see a map of my facility and be able to understand the occupancy in that particular area without actually having to look at the cameras. Obviously, today we're talking about occupancy detection, so we're going to talk to you all about that. Intercom management and communications management is something that we can do as part of our solution and part of our response to this ever-changing world. Thermal heat detection. So if you did want to deploy a fever detecting camera, I put big quotes around that, a fever detecting camera, we can certainly do that, and we have the tools for you to do that with inside of Security Center. Intrusion monitoring, facial recognition, and of course, contactless access control, we can all do as part of Security Center. So think of Security Center as a single pane of glass to manage your entire security operation and your response to reopening your businesses. So we're all familiar with scenes like this. Unfortunately, these large crowds are probably a thing of the past for the foreseeable future. I don't see a time anywhere within the next 6 to 12 months where there will be a huge mass gathering like this that doesn't look very different, right? Whether, you know, only clusters of 10 or so people will be able to get together, or everybody's got to wear a mask, or everybody's going to be in hazmat suits. Who knows what it's going to look like? But it ain't going to look like this for a very, very long time.
Plus so 1-847-417-7930
is now exiting.
Goodbye. So how do we reopen facilities responsibly while maintaining social distance? So before we get into the solution, I wanted Don from our regional sales manager in New England to share a story. So Don, tell us about your story with this particular establishment.
Yeah, sure thing, Phil. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad everybody could make it. We have a nice big crowd here, so that's pretty exciting here. So really quickly here, yeah, it was a couple weeks ago. I'm walking into a local hardware store. As you can see in the picture there, we have no idea who that is, but walking in there and noticed an employee at the front entrance who was very politely telling everybody to stand 6 feet apart and then checking everyone in as they entered into the building. He was doing so by ways of his phone. So he just had his phone in his hand and he was just, going through the list, right? So I went on with my business. I went to the store. I'm thinking about the whole time, like, how accurate can that be? As I'm leaving, there was another employee on the other end, on the exit, doing the same thing. However, she had 2 phones in her hand, so it was a little. It definitely piqued my interest. So went over to her and started asking her a couple questions, and surprisingly, she started, conversating. So I just tried to figure out what she was doing, right? So at that moment, she said she was counting the people leaving the building on an app on her phone. Just going back and forth, asking how it works, and she said it was a pain. It crashed a few times, and she had to reset, and she actually kind of just guesstimated at that point. She had a second phone in her hand, and she was using that to communicate with the person on the entrance. So just to make sure that they were on the same page. I mean, it just seemed very overwhelming and obviously not accurate, right? Got a little further down the conversation, and she ended up telling me she makes $17 an hour. So sitting here thinking, for a solution that they're doing that only, is slightly accurate, there's a human error, and it's about $100,000 a year salary between the two, right? I think you have that on your slide, Phil.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, our thought process was to replace that, right? So we're not only just offering a flavor of the month product here, but it seems like a solution that could be long term, right? So you're removing the human error, you're replacing that salary with a solution that's much more accurate. So that kind of got our minds going, and Mr. Coppola here put it all into a nice little slide deck.
Yeah. Thanks, Don. Yeah. So again, 2 people or more, and we've all been there. When I go to the local big box grocery store, or you kind of know what I'm talking about, where you could buy things in bulk. They're counting people on the way in, they're counting people on the way out, and they're, basically saying, well, maybe there can only be 50 or 100 people in the store. And you've got those folks that are sort of on the front line with the clicker or with the app that could also be potentially exposed to whatever. And even if it's not being exposed to the virus, we are starting to see stories in the news of people getting a little rambunctious with the folks that are trying to enforce these social distancing guidelines. So we're putting these people sort of on the front lines of that. So 2 people or more counting other people using phones or clickers and a calculator, making $17 an hour plus benefits. You're talking, just in Don's scenario, $100,000 that this particular company is paying for people to count people. This is not efficient. So what are we offering? With our new occupancy detection plugin, we can count people using either Kiwi Vision people counter video analytics or LiDAR sensors from Optex and maybe some other brands, visualizing that data for you via either dashboards or visual reports, and allowing you through event to action to actually manage these occupancy policies. So if you have a certain number of people in the establishment, start triggering different things to happen. And we're going to show this to you in a live demonstration. So the people counter is the first part of this. Again, either we're going to tap into the customer's cameras or into your facility's cameras and literally count people as they come in and as they come out, measuring the volume of foot traffic, capturing the ins and outs, aggregating the multiple doors to a specific area. So if you could think about that hardware store that might have 2 or 3 entrances and 2 or 3 exits, as people are coming into entrance 1, 2, and 3, we're counting them into the main area. As they're exiting exits 4, 5, and 6, we're removing them from the area. So we're able to aggregate all the information that we're getting from the different doors into their specific and most relevant areas. We can do that with either the people counting analytic or with these LiDAR sensors. And we're going to talk about the differences between the two of those. So then what do we do with that information? Well, number one, we're going to visualize it. We're going to give you a visual representation of what's going on in the store or in the establishment. So here we're showing what the occupancy number is, how many people came in over the past hour. We're able to chart these things for you. And of course, over the course of time, and why we feel that occupancy detection is a lot more relevant of a solution than fever detection is because a fever detector may or may not be able to detect fever. With this, we're constantly aggregating this data. So now over the course of time, we can start to tell really interesting trends. So if I was a retail store, I might be really interested in the number of people that come into my establishment during certain times of the day. What are things that affected this? And maybe even start to cross-reference that with data on my transactions, and did I have a sale that day, which is why I saw this spike, or was it raining out? And the same is true for other organizations. So this data remains relevant over the long term versus a fever detector that may or may not even work. And then the last part of this is managing those occupancy guidelines. Security desk, through event to action, can trigger a wide variety of events to occur or actions to occur based on those events. So we set a threshold. This particular area is allowed to have 100 people. When it gets to 80, I want to turn on a yellow light, display something on a public view monitor, send an email, play a sound, add a bookmark, any number of things, or even send an alert to a mobile phone. So a mobile operator is going to get a push notification alerting them that you're approaching capacity. And then when you get to capacity, we can trigger other actions to occur. Again, emails, playing sounds, initiating a red light, locking doors, preventing people from entering once you hit that threshold. So we do a vast variety of different actions based on this occupancy data. So we have two different options for providing you with this information. What we've been talking about thus far is the occupancy plugin. This gives you the ability to visualize from a dashboard inside of the security desk application. We can use event to actions. We can manage accuracy issues by programming and fine-tuning the algorithm to be just right. Provide you with audit reporting. Give you mobile options. And then the license here is perpetual. So once you acquire this, you own it. You do with it whatever you want. We also have a sense-based option, which is a web-based way to visualize this information. The only thing that this option lacks is the ability to trigger those events to action. So at the end of this, I'll turn this over to Jared, who can talk more about this particular sense piece of the puzzle. In terms of counting methods, there are two. So there's the video analytic, and this is with Kiwi People Counter. It's compatible with pretty much every IP camera that's on the market. It's not a purpose-built sensor, right? So a camera is a camera, where we happen to be using it for video analytics. So we need to make sure that when it's installed according to the correct parameters, right? It really should be top-down, very narrow view. The height requirements are very specific, so that we can get that accuracy number as high as possible. You can see here the estimated accuracy is between 90 to 92% when deployed properly. So this is not 100%. You'll never hear Genetec say we have a solution that'll give you 100% accuracy. It's really going to be dependent upon the camera and upon the installation. But you can see here the MSRP ranges between about $510 per device, all the way up to $2,765. Depends on the appliance that you choose to attach this to. So $510 would be, I already have my hardware, I already have my appliances, and I'm just applying licensing, versus $2,765 because I have to buy an appliance to land this on. That versus LiDAR. So LiDAR is highly accurate. So we can show roughly between 95 and 98% accuracy. but that accuracy comes at a cost of about $3,600 per door. We do not sell the LiDAR sensor. There are LiDAR sensors from various brands like this one, Quanergy or Optex. So we would certainly help you with the recommended specific hardware. So where can this be used? Pretty much everywhere. Retail stores are the ones that jump out to us immediately, right? But we're starting to see requests for this for beaches. They want to know how many people are on the beach at any given point in time. Public pools, amusement parks, your local sky zone or jump land or whatever they call these things, the places where the kids go to jump on trampolines all day. Public open spaces, warehouses, corporate offices, anywhere where occupancy is going to be part of your opening policies and procedures, where we need to know exactly how many people are coming through. That is where this can be used. So with that, Scott, I'm going to hand the reins over to you for you to share your screen and guide us through the demo.
All right, thank you, Phil. So this is Scott Williamson. I'm the sales engineer for New England, counterpart to Don Costa, and I will be sharing my screen so that you can see what it looks like. So can everybody? Well, I don't want to ask the question because I don't want 100 and something people answer
it. I see it. It is on.
Okay, so what you're looking at right now is just the generic Genetec security desk that we have set up to be a occupancy counter. I have a default view set up here with a map that is showing our two zones. So a zone can be referenced to a camera or a LiDAR. Basically right here, as you guys can see, this is a zone for an entrance and an exit, and this is a zone for an entrance and exit. We are utilizing these cameras from Kiwi people counting analytic to create these zones. These zones can be created either with in and out or just in. It just really depends on the setup of your facility. But I would recommend in and out because inevitably you might always have somebody going out that's supposed to be going in or vice versa. Over here in this other green grid, we have our actual occupancy counter. And as you can see, I'm at about 39% threshold of 100. So as Phil was talking about earlier, I set a 80% threshold
Unknown
to alert me when something is happening in this area. And an area can consist of multiple zones put together, i.e. multiple Kiwi people counting from a camera or multiple LiDARs to create one area that you're aggregating all that information, that in and out. So as you guys can see down here, it is counting vice versa, one camera as along with the other camera in and out, and it's going to make its calculations up here, the aggregate of those two combined. So it'll go up, it'll go down really fast. And I'm going to do some things off screen so you guys aren't seeing, because if I press on this screen, you guys will see, you'll see my phone disappear. So this is a sync with my phone, so you are actually looking at what my mobile phone would look like if I were the customer, and I just have the notifications already brought up, so you will see what happens. But through the monitoring screen, you can actually reset your count for your instrumented area, which again is your area consisting of your aggregated zones. So off to the side here, I'm going to actually reset this count to get closer to my threshold so we can see what happens. And just like any other event to action in Genetec, we can create actions and tell the system exactly what we want to do. But I told the system to, upon 80%, go flash this blue LED and also set my system to a blue threat level, which then in turn can set off multiple actions, send a message, secure.
So Scott,
yep.
I want to stop you right there and really kind of drill down on this. So we hit the 80% threshold. So you were able to turn on that blue light and then also send a push notification to your phone based on hitting that first occupancy threshold level.
Correct.
Okay, great.
And I can also do the same when the occupancy has clear. So the occupancy just now went return to normal. So I sent a push notifications to my phone saying occupancy has returned to normal, i.e. it fell below 80%.
And I want to be 100% clear on this. Scott is not doing anything off screen right now. Like the system is getting to that threshold level. It's falling below 80%. It's automatically turning the blue light off and automatically sending that push notification, and vice versa. When it reaches the threshold again, it's doing all that again. He's not doing anything off screen to force any of this to happen.
Correct. And that all of that information is just based on the information that the people counting is giving us based on these two, the aggregate of these two cameras put together. So right now we're at 86%, and to save some time, I'm going to push this up a little bit higher. So we have 3 different levels for our plugin that we can monitor for or trigger events for. The first one being high occupancy. That's the first threshold we hit. I set to be 80%. The second one being maximum occupancy. So my maximum occupancy for this system is set to 100. And then the third event to action we can create is when it goes back to normal. So when i.e. when it drops back to a normal occupancy level. So nobody has seen what happens when it reaches the max occupancy, but again, kind of the same thing. We can just tell the system what we want to. So I'm going to punch this up a little bit higher to get us up to 98. So here we go. We just
maximum capacity. No other customers are allowed in the store at this time. Once the threshold falls below 80%, then another customer can come in. Thank you for your understanding.
So we don't have to hear this over and over. I'm going to reset this back down to 0. But as everybody heard, hopefully you heard through my microphone and you saw, we created another event to action that triggered a threat level. That threat level happened to flash red along with the LED in my demo kit. So a customer, you can install a red light on the outside of the facility, inside the facility, whatever suits that customer's needs, but also still get the push notifications. And I just happen to tie it into a IP-based speaker from ASIS, and I triggered a pre-recorded message so that it, once I hit that maximum occupancy, I really wanted to let everybody know we're at max level. Please, no more customers at this time. One more thing I wanted to show you real quick. So we also have it through our dashboards. So you can show the same kind of things through our dashboards, and you can show the different reports that we can provide for this. One of them being the volume report. So you can actually see, sorry, let me get this off screen. You can actually see the volume that you have coming into your facility based on hourly, based on daily, or based on weekly. So this is showing me that based on approximately every hour, I'm getting anywhere from 109 to 116. Now these numbers are a little bit different because of the accuracy of the counting. I'm just using looped video here, but even then, some of the accuracy is not as high as we would like to see, and it's probably based mostly on this camera right here, because like Phil mentioned earlier, you would really want these people in this camera that's labeled N to be funneled a little bit better, like they are in this people counting video. So this is just another way of, we want to show you that in a setup like this, that this camera is probably getting closer to a 90% to 95% accuracy, to where the one on the left is somewhere I would guesstimate in the range of 98 to 99% accuracy, just based on the setup and the conditions. So that's about all I have to show, Phil. Unless
absolutely. No, Scott, that's fantastic. So why don't you leave up the monitoring task as we go through the Q&A here. But I want to really drill down on the accuracy. So this is only ever going to be as accurate as the deployment of the cameras. And to Scott's point, the one you see in tile 3, super accurate. The camera's mounted at the right height. We're funneling people in a single file line through at a regular rate of speed, right? So the higher up the camera goes, the wider the field of view, the more you're going to have challenges with accuracy. So one of the questions in the Q&A here is, does it work well for multiple persons entering or exiting at once? The answer is yes, but if you can narrow it down and keep it to a confined area, right? We don't want to see, people walking 10 abreast, maybe 2 or 3 abreast before you start to run into accuracy issues. We'll go through some of the other Q&A here. I assume the data time series is being collected. What happens when you reset the counter? That's actually a really good question. Scott, any idea there?
Yeah, so that is a good question. So as far as your reports, it does not reset the counter in your reports. The only thing it's resetting is your visualization of your instrumented area or your actual area of the facility. And it's doing it for the purposes of resetting for your event to actions, basically. But in your volume detection and your other reports, it is not resetting those. It's still keeping the volume coming through, is still gonna count up like you never reset it. I hope that answers.
Yep. And then the other question that we have here is how do we deploy it? Is it an additional license per camera that we deploy the solution to? Example, if I have 10 entrances to my building, do I need to acquire 10 licenses to deploy 10 specific cameras? The answer to that question is yes. So it is licensed on a per camera basis, on a per device basis. So we can sort of talk offline about all the different licensing that you would require. So what we're showing on the screen is a combination of camera connections and the occupancy detection plugin, all working obviously inside of Security Center, which is licensed for Omnicast. So we would walk you through all the different licensing that you would need. How do you account for employees walking in and out of facilities all day long? I mean, that's literally just this is the way that this is intended to work. So long as you have the cameras deployed at the appropriate entry and exit points, every time somebody leaves, they're going to be counted out. Every time somebody comes in, they're going to be counted as in. Let's see. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So real quick, sorry, this is Eric. So I think as far as the pricing question goes too, obviously there's a couple different ways we can skin the cat, whether they have Genetec and they don't have Genetec. This team, myself, Matt, and Don have been trying to work together to come up with some unofficial Genetec kits, so to speak. So to Phil's point, just bring the opportunity to us and we'll work with the team to price it so that it's cost effective depending upon the deployment.
Yeah, absolutely. So this, like we were mentioning in the PowerPoint earlier, we do have a method to sort of applianceize this, right? Just so we could, if you have a facility that really only needs to count 2 doors, we could put this on an appliance, deploy it, and have it be almost as a standalone type of solution. But to Eric's point, let's have those conversations offline, and we can certainly walk you through the pricing for that. Here we have a couple more questions. Is there any limitation on the camera? Are there any cameras that will not work with people counting?
From the base design, we have a Kiwi Vision people counting deployment guide, but I will say, pretty much, I don't like using the word every camera, but every camera that is a device compatible camera with Genetec that I believe has to be at a minimum of 720p. You can utilize to deploy. We've had customers that just repurpose, because again, in times like this, maybe you're not so much concerned about your security, but you can take a entrance camera and repurpose it, and instead of have it pointing, you can point it down. That's a great question. You don't have to have it pointed down. We actually, with our people counting, we have allocated for tilted deployment, but with those kinds of deployments are going to come less accuracy, I guess I will put it that way. So if everybody can see my screen, as you can see here, this scenario here with the people counting, and I mean, this is really zoomed in. You can have this zoomed out. I'd say in the range, somewhere in the range of 10 to 15 feet, you're going to be really safe, still looking down. But we definitely have a deployment guide that if anybody has questions after this, what I'll do is I'll work with Phil and I'll compile the anything like that we need, and we can send out to the entire team.
Awesome. So with the last 2 minutes, Scott, if you don't mind, just one more time increasing that threshold. Let's show it go from normal to elevated to at capacity. Okay.
Yep. So there we went to the 80%.
Okay,
got the notification. Sent the push the notification to my phone.
and the light comes on and the push notification goes out and the emails go out and all that sort of fun stuff is occurring behind the scenes. So really a solution that can be used for a wide variety of applications as
You have
we
reached
begin to
maximum
reopen the
capacity.
facilities.
No other customers are allowed in the store at this time. Once the threshold falls below 80%, then another customer can come in. Thank you for your understanding.
Folks, again, we're right at time. Thank you everybody for sticking in. I can't believe we got over 100 people to actually stick with us for a full 30 minutes, considering everybody's webinar fatigue. So thank you very much for that. My name is Phil Coppola. I'm the Regional Sales Manager for Genetec in the state of New Jersey. Please reach out to your appropriate regional sales manager, whether that's Eric Kay for West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, upstate New York.
Standard Industries.
Is now exiting.
Matt Holland for New York Metro, and Don Costa for the New England territories. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.